obviously, good win for Ole Miss against Georgia State. Austin Simmons looked the way I thought he would. There were times where I thought he'd be I was thinking, well, I thought he was further along, but then I had to remind myself, dude, he's 19. It doesn't matter how many years he's been in that system. He's still 19 and hasn't started. So there were definitely moments that Austin made me feel like, oh, okay, maybe he's not quite at the level I thought he was. But then in other ways, when we were sitting here last week, you said he would throw like 2 touchdowns and an interception or something like that, right? So, I mean, it wasn't anything crazy. He had a couple throws that Ben had me pumped. I mean, absolutely. There was one down the sideline, I think to maybe Wallace, that just had me just losing it on my buddy's couch on that Saturday watching that game. But just let's start with Austin Simmons and just kind of your thoughts on how he played on last Saturday.
I thought it was as good of an opener as you could have reasonably expected from him. And the reason why I was predicting a turnover at least is because that's how fall camp went. And his first game starting, doesn't matter that Georgia State's a 3-9 team from last year and an inferior opponent. There was going to be a play or two where he maybe missed the slide call and got hit in the back and threw a terrible interception in the red zone. And that happened. But at the end of it, all the data points he needed to hit, he hit. He's second in the SEC in passing. He was 20 of 31 as far as his completions. Even with the 2 interceptions, he was accurate. That you mentioned that beautiful throw to Harrison Wallace down the sideline when really they were struggling to get anything, to get some consistent offense going. The first drive scripted, 3 plays, touchdown, looked like, well, you're thinking, oh, here we go. I mean, this is now what we all thought it was going to be. But then you get off script and the kid has to process. He has to make adjustments, line adjustments, set the protections and those things. And with an offensive line of 5 stars that hadn't been together ever before until Georgia State, there was going to be some growing pains, learning things with them as well. So that's what you kind of saw. But look at that throw. That's what you're counting on. Dropping it in a bucket between 2 defenders. He had separation to Harrison Wallace, a great separation receiver, going to be a next level player. That's pretty good protection right there. And when he had the time, he was able to set his feet and throw a little too often, especially early on where he gets stuck on his first and second read. But that's to be expected from a first-year starting quarterback. Same thing with Arch Manning. But the bones of what you hope to see and what you think Austin Simmons is as a quarterback was on full display. He's got a little bit of a wind-up in his throwing motion.
I was going to say, that was a concern for me too, was that it not quite Tebow level, but I definitely noticed that wind-up, and I was like, that's got to get corrected.
Well, the thing is it's still quick, and I would rather work with that than work with whatever Arch was doing against Ohio State with those sidearm throws. Right. I swear, man, Patrick Mahomes is one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game of football. But what he has done, just like with Steph Curry changing the game of basketball with his quick release and he's the greatest 3-point shooter of all time, right? Like he's a volume 3-point shooter. He changed the game of basketball. He stretched it out to 3 and made the game play more on the perimeter than inside. Same thing with Patrick Mahomes and all these different throwing motions, Sudu.
Yep.
All these kids are trying to replicate it.
Yep.
There's only one Patrick Mahomes, despite the cosplay of Dylan Raiola.
Yep.
There's only one Patrick Mahomes.
Cosplay is crazy.
Like you got friends, y'all just be yourselves. Okay. Like you can add stuff to your toolbox once you get a firm foundation of who you are. So some of that sidearm stuff I think is just pervasive in the culture now, just because everyone's so used to seeing a new thing with Patrick Mahomes, the no look passes. They love the virality of that on TikTok, all that kind of stuff. That's not the game you need to be focused on. And so for Austin, a little hitch in his windup. It's still coming out quickly. And man, when you saw he got clean pockets, he's got everything. He's got everything you want as far as a developmental quarterback and molding him to what you want him to be. It was, of course, going to be a little shaky because it was his first time starting, but I think he passed with flying colors. Yeah, everyone readily acknowledges that second interception specifically was absolutely horrendous.
That was bad because he didn't see the safety. And what I will say is you obviously go to these scrimmages and different things like that. And I had gotten a report from a friend who was at a closed scrimmage. This was maybe early-ish to mid-August about that specific situation. He said, he texted me, said, I love what I'm seeing from Austin. The only thing is he is not recognizing the safety up top. And I remember him telling me this. And then the day of the game, when he threw that interception, first guy that texted me was same guy. And he said, I told you, this is exactly what I saw in the scrimmage. Those are the things about quarterbacks that make you worry, right? the constant mistakes that don't get fixed. But I also know that he's a high IQ guy, and his coach is Lane frickin' Kiffin.
Yep.
So if there's anyone that can fix that, it's Lane, and it's working with Austin. And, it's fine, man. It's his first year starting. I've never thought Ole Miss were going to be world beaters. The schedule's favorable.
20 of 31 for 340, whatever.
340 yards. Yeah. Three touchdowns. I mean, it was a pretty solid game for a first-time starter. Very excited to see what happens against Kentucky. We'll get to Kentucky